Hey everyone, I have an AI automation today that I am absolutely obsessed with. It involves Make, it involves Mailchimp, and it involves Airtable. What am I talking about here? A newsletter automation. So, unlike what I usually do, I'm going to show you the output first because I want you to be as obsessed with this as I am. So let's go look at it. And I promise after this, we're going to go through a full tutorial build so you can do this yourself. But right now I'm in Airtable and I have two Airtables. The first one is where I put the name of my newsletter, the AI Museum. I put in the description. This is all manual. This is the description of my newsletter right here. And then I put in the default header image that I use for my newsletter. Again, all manual. So what's going to happen with this? I'm going to run a make automation that's going to create me 12 newsletter issue titles with newsletter issue descriptions. And then I could decide whether or not I want the automation to write the newsletter. So I'm going to click this right here, run once. And in our second Airtable, that is where the make automation puts its output for the 12 newsletter issues. I have the name of my newsletter, I have the description of my newsletter, the issue title and focus is what the automation has given us. So let's look at one. AI and human collaboration. What's that about? Tells me that it's about exploring how AI enhances human capabilities rather than replacing them, and examples of successful AI-human partnerships. I like that one. So I'm going to go to my drop down here. You see my options. Well, I want this one to draft. And my automation would be on once daily, but for here, we're just going to run it on our own. So now we have our second automation that's going to write the newsletter. Now you see it's changed to review draft. So let's go ahead and do that. Here is the content for my newsletter, Embracing the Future, How AI and Human Collaboration Are Revolutionizing Industries. Just a glance, we'll look at this together. I mean, I like it. This is an example. These are my newsletters, by the way. I put out this newsletter. Just like it breaks it down by, okay, so I like this newsletter. I want to create a campaign for it. So I am going to select create email campaign. I don't think anything needs to be rewritten. We come back over to our automation, which would run automatically on its own. But for now, we're just hitting run once. And now the make automation is routing the newsletter copy into a Mailchimp template. And now that we're back in our Airtable, you can see it says email campaign has been created. That means that this newsletter is officially completed and it's uploaded into Mailchimp for you to send at your leisure. And it also gives us a link to the preview. Look at that link. And here is the newsletter that is now uploaded into my Mailchimp account. It has my header image, which I love, by the way. I mean, I think that's super cute what I did there. Maybe you don't, but I do. I'm proud of it. Moving on, look at the formatting we have here. Everything just looks great. This newsletter is ready to go, in my opinion. I would send this out right away. My name is Kelly, if we haven't met already. I run an AI marketing automation lab. It is a Skool community. My school is about 3 important things: automation that transforms, power of community, and always staying ahead of your competition. You don't want to get left behind in this AI world that just keeps changing overnight. I invite you to check out my community. If you like this tutorial, please like and subscribe, and let's begin to build together. Beginning of our build starts in our Airtable, and we're going to create 2 Airtables. First, you want to create a base. Our base is called Newsletter Simple, and then I have 2 tables that I'm going to be using for this automation. I have newsletter info and prompts and newsletters. Now, our newsletter info and prompts is where we put the name of our newsletter, the description, and the default header image. And as I said earlier, this is all manual. And then we have our newsletter table. This is where all the information is going to populate for our newsletter issues, the writing for our newsletter, and our Mailchimp link to see the preview of the newsletter. That'll all populate here once we run the make automation. Coming back to our newsletter info and prompts, our first column is going to be a single line text field. Our second column for description is going to be a long text field. And then our default header image is going to be an attachment field. So once you have all those set up, you can go ahead and enter your information manually. Coming over to our next Airtable, let's look at the setup there. Now we have a lot more columns here. So the name of our newsletter, again, it's going to be the same. It's going to be a single line text. Then the description of the newsletter is going to be long text. Issue title and focus. This is going to be another long text field. Going into issue description, you got it, another long text field. And this one here, we want to enable the rich text formatting on it. So make sure that's selected and always save. And then we have our next step field, which I showed you in the beginning, that tells you whether you want to write the draft, rewrite it, create a campaign. So we'll look into here, and this field is going to be a single select. So you're going to create your drop-down menus, and we have here draft newsletter, rewrite newsletter, create email campaign created, and review draft. You want to have this set up exactly as it looks right here. And we've color-coded our options, so feel free to play with that as well. Moving on to our newsletter content. So this field is where the newsletter is going to be written and put back into the Airtable from the automation that I'll be showing you. So we're going to edit the field here to be long text, and again, we want to enable rich text formatting. Coming over to our header image, this is going to be an attachment field. And then we have our Mailchimp link. This is going to be a URL field. And then when it comes to our last modified section, this is going to be, we label it last modified, and then we select last modified time. This is so the Make automation can search your Airtables for anything new that you put in there. So if it's running once a day, it sees something new because the last modified time was recent, it'll run the automation for it. Now that the two Airtables are set up, let's check out the two Make automations that work with these Airtables. Our first one is the newsletter issue creator. This is going to create us 12 newsletter issues. It's going to give us the topic, and it's going to give us the description of what the newsletter would be about. So first, we're going to be adding a search records module for Airtable. Inside here, our connection is going to be to our base newsletter simple. Again, that's repeated right here. And then we have our newsletter info and prompts table. That's the first table that I showed you where you put in your information manually. So what we want to do here is our output fields. We want name of newsletter, description, and default header image, just as they are in the columns in that table. So you put select all, scroll down. We have a limit of 3. You could leave that as is and hit save. The next module that we're putting in is a create a completion prompt from ChatGPT, and we are calling it our editorial planner. So in here, you're going to get prompted, if you haven't already, to set up your OA auth connection. So the select method is create a chat completion. The model that we'll be using is ChatGPT 4.0. I always like to use the latest model, so that's why this one's selected. Let me go into our messages. So we're going to expand this section. Our role is going to be user. And here we have our prompt. So I'll go through this with you. I'm creating a weekly newsletter called Name of Newsletter. We're pulling that from the first Airtable. It is about description, pulling that also from the first Airtable. Can you come up with a different topic focus for each week for the next 12 weeks? Do not output the word JSON or any characters before the first bracket or after the last bracket. Important output in a JSON array with a weekly title and description in separate fields. Do not output anything else, just the array. Do not mention the prompt in your output. Do not put the word JSON or any characters before the first bracket or after the last bracket. And we're saying this because we're about to go into a JSON parser. So in our parse, we have our data structure, that's what you're selecting. And then in our choices from the editorial calendar, what we're going to go under, choices here, message, and then select content. And then you want to save this as is. And what this is going to do is it is going to, as the editorial calendar is coming up with topics and descriptions, that parser is going to spit them out one by one into the Airtable as onto each line. So it's not just one big chunk of information. So like I said, it's going to spit the information out, so we need to have it go back into the Airtable. But what Airtable are we using this time? This time we're using the Airtable called newsletters. So our connection is still to our base, newsletter simple here again. And the Airtable is called newsletters, which is the second table that we set up. And that's where we want all of our output to go. So looking down here, we need to match up some records. The name of the newsletter, we're going to get from the first Airtable. Select that right there. Description of the newsletter, again, the first Airtable. And the issue title and focus, the weekly title, is coming from the JSON parser. And the description is also coming from the JSON parser. When it comes to the header image, under the file URL, you're going to select default header image. And that, again, is coming from the first search records Airtable. So we're going to go default header image URL, which is right here. You click this one. And then smart links, no, we don't want any, and we hit save. And again, this Airtable is an upsert a record module. That's how we want to set this up here. So why don't we go ahead and run this, and then we'll move on to the next part of our automation. So I am going to hit run once. So it just pulled the information from the Airtable. It pulled my newsletter name, my description, and now the editorial planner has spit out 12 different titles, and it is now in my Airtable. So let's go look at that. Boom. So great. Okay. So we'll take a quick preview of one of these, and we'll select one that I'm going to want to have written. Let's look at this one. Okay, I like this. The AI Museum, and this is the issue title and focus that it gave me. Ethical AI, debunking fears and misinformation. And then it gives you an issue description for that issue title. The description here is addressing concerns about AI ethics and how responsible development is shaping a better future. I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm going to put in here that I want that newsletter to be drafted. But before I draft it, let's build the automation for it. So we have our newsletter issue creator automation, and then our second automation is the newsletter writer. Our first module is an Airtable watch records module. We're going to go into here. Our connection is still newsletter simple, and so is my base, but my table this time is newsletters. The trigger field that I'm looking at is last modified, so we want to make sure that's selected here. Then we have label field. You're going to put in issue number. You'll select that. And then limit, change this to 12 because we're only having 12 issues be populated at a time, and hit save. Now, we're moving on to our router. And for this first part, I'm just going to explain the first part of the router here. So our router is going to send it to Perplexity because of this filter right here. We want it first to write the newsletter before it creates an email campaign for the newsletter. How can you create a campaign for it if you don't have it written? So we're going to look into our filter here. The label we gave it is write newsletter. You select no here for set the route as a fallback. Condition is going to be next step. That comes from the module previously, that Airtable module. Select that. Text operators contains case insensitive. That's what you want to have selected there. And then we have draft newsletter, which is manually needs to be typed in. And we also have the condition. We have an or rule, so and or. So we're doing or condition do this, or we have our next step that we select again right here. And then we have the text operators contain case insensitive, just as the top one. And this one is going to be rewrite newsletter. And that is going to be something that you type out manually as well. And then save. Once it gets past the filter, it goes into the Perplexity module, which is create a chat completion. So we have your My Perplexity connection set up. So you might need to go through an OA auth process. And the model that I selected is Llama Sonar Large. Now we're going to expand messages, and under item 1 we have content. So this is your prompt here. You are an expert in description of newsletter. Select here, then go down and select description of newsletter. You are researching content for a newsletter called name of newsletter. Comes right from here. There we go. Where is it? I can't find it. Ba 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 ba. And then we have name of newsletter, which you could again find right here from the same Airtable. And so it's called name of newsletter that covers the following topic. And then we have the description of the newsletter, which is, again, you just pulled that. So you're just going to click that one again. The role we want here is system. And the content we want, this is our big prompt. When writing the newsletter, include an intro paragraph, body, bullets with step-by-step summary, key takeaways, and why this is important to the reader. Make it fun and enjoyable. Keep the newsletter between 700 and 1100 words. This week's issue is focused on the following topic. The issue title and focus comes from the first Airtable. You click that right there. And the issue description. Click that right there. Don't reference the reader, for example. Don't say why this is important to the reader or things like introduction. So I'll go ahead and you can go ahead and take a screenshot of this right here if you need to, and that's the prompt that you can use, or you can edit your prompt for how you see fit. The role that we're going to select down here is going to be user, and then you can just select save. So now that this is set up, the router has sent the topic and the name of the newsletter to Perplexity. Perplexity is now writing the newsletter, and then it's putting the written content of the newsletter back into our Airtable by updating a record. So here, my connection is still the same. My base is still the same. The table I'm using is newsletters, and I'm choosing record ID right here from the first Airtable Watch Records module. Scroll down here a bit. We have next step is going to be review draft. That way, once it's written in the Airtable, it'll change to review draft. So you know that you have to go in, tell it whether you like it, get it rewritten, vice versa, yada, yada. And so here for newsletter content, you're going to select choices. And this is coming from our Perplexity Create a Chat Completion module. And then under here, you'll select messages, and then you'll select content. Smart links, no, we don't want them, and we hit save. So now that this automation is set up, I can click to run this, and it's going to write me a newsletter for this issue right here because I selected draft newsletter. Let's go see what it did. All right, now that the automation finished running, you can see that draft newsletter has changed to review draft, which means when I come in here and I see review draft, oh, let me go check it out. This is the draft that it put together for me. Just like you saw earlier, it's formatted. So now I want to create a campaign with this newsletter because I like it. Why not? So let's go and look at the second branch of this automation here that includes Mailchimp, because Mailchimp is a fan favorite, so why not create an automation for it? That's what I say. We have our Airtable Watch Records module, which we already set up and we don't need to touch. Now we have our router. So what's happening in this filter? We labeled this filter create a newsletter email. The condition is going to be next step. It comes from the first Airtable Watch Records, and the text operators are going to be email campaign, create email campaign, and this is something that you type in manually. And we're going to hit save. So if we select create an email campaign and we run this, then this router is going to send it this way because of this filter. So our next is we have Markdown to HTML. So what is this exactly? Well, we're going to select our newsletter content right here. This is converting the newsletter copy to HTML for Mailchimp. So are you ready to get into Mailchimp? Once you have a Mailchimp account open, you have to create a templated email. So you click into content, and then you go down to email templates. Head up to the top right corner and click create template. Take a peek at the left-hand side over here. You're going to want to click into code your own. And we're going to go with pasting code today and every day. Yes, continue to classic. And we're going to name our template. So let's name it AI Automation Newsletter Template. Save. All right. This looks fun, doesn't it? Adding a module now for Mailchimp, create a campaign. Going into here, we're going to have your Mailchimp connection. If you don't have that set up already, you're going to need your API key. We're already good to go. So our campaign title, we're going to pull that from the first Watch Records module for Airtable, and you want to select Issue and Title Focus. The list, the audience ID, this comes from Mailchimp, and ours is named the AI Marketing Automation Lab. So we selected that here. And now we have subject line. You want to put in issue, title, and focus. Click that right there. And the preview text coming from the same module again is going to be issue description. So just click that. And now you want to type in your from name, who is this email coming from, and the from email address is coming from me, and that's my email address. And use conversation, nope. And then fill the body content. We're going to select by template ID. So we're going to ignore by HTML format text, select by template ID. And template ID, this is the template that you've created in Mailchimp for these newsletters to populate in. Ours is called Automated Newsletter Template, so that's the one that we've selected here. And we're going to hit save. So what comes after that? Our new friend, Cloudinary. So what's happening here is when Mailchimp grabs the image from Airtable, the image breaks. You'll go into your Mailchimp account and you'll see a broken header image. So to counteract that, we're working with Cloudinary. Cloudinary is an image hosting server for the web. And you could set up a free account to get this going. So let's go look at that. So after you set up a free account, you're going to go down to settings on the left-hand side here. And then we have our API keys up here. You're going to need to grab one of those. You'll grab your this API key, and then you also have your secret API key, which is going to prompt you to put in the password that you use to sign up with. Once you have those keys, you'll be able to make the connection into Make. So looking in here, you see now there's a connection in there because we put in our API keys, so you'll have to do the same. The file type, we're going to do URL where the file is stored. You select that. File is going to be header image URL. That comes from the first Airtable. So header image, drop down, and then select URL. Our resource type is going to be image. Use file name, we're going to keep that empty. And the type here is going to be upload. And then click save. So now we've set up our Mailchimp account and we have a template that we selected that we want to use. And now we have Cloudinary, which is going to put our header images into our Mailchimp account and make sure that they work all the time. So let's talk about editing a campaign template with the content that we've just created. So here's our second Mailchimp module, edit a campaign template content. Clicking into this, we have our connection set up still. Enter a campaign ID, that's going to be selected enter manually. Campaign ID is going to come from our first Mailchimp module. So you'll find it right here. You can go ahead and select that. And for template ID, we have underneath our settings to select template ID right down here. Now, remember that email template in Mailchimp that we just created? Well, that's where this comes from. So let me show you what exactly that means. So we're looking at the edit code, and anything that says MC edit, like right here, that's replaceable content. So we're going to take this MC edit body content and put it in our automation right here. Just as it is, we're going to type in body content as we saw it. And then we're going to fill in that body content with the markdown output. So you just select HTML from our markdown module. Oh, that's the only one there. Shouldn't be too hard. And we're going to do the same thing with another MC edit. There's one in there called pre-header left call content. And what that's going to do is that's going to replace this right up here, this content. And what we're going to put in that area is the issue description, which we grabbed from our first Airtable module. Right there, just click issue description. And then item 3, email image. Again, this is coming from an MC edit in the HTML for the email. So we're going to put that in there. Now looking at the content area, you're going to want to copy this exactly as is. And this URL is going to come from Cloudinary, and it's going to be right here. You're going to select that to get that in right in that spot. But you want this exactly as is, spaces, quotations, everything in order for it to work properly. Now that we've created a campaign, we have our image ready to go, and we have our template set up so that our content can be populated in there, we're going to go ahead and do another Mailchimp module called Get a Campaign. And in here, look how simple. All you need to do is grab the campaign ID from the first Mailchimp module that we put in. So let's go there. It is, remember that one's called Create a Campaign, and we just grab the campaign ID right off the top and save. And now we're going to update a record in our Airtable. The base is still newsletter simple. My table that I want all of this to populate in is newsletters. And our record ID, you can find down here, top one right there. And then we're going to populate a few more fields here. Our next step is email campaign created. And then we have our Mailchimp link. This is coming from the last Mailchimp module called Get a Campaign, and we're going to look for that long archive URL right there. And that's what you'll click to populate into here. Smart links, nope, don't want them even if you got them. Hit save. So now our second make automation is complete, and this is the newsletter writer automation. And then we also built previously to this our newsletter issue creator automation. So our newsletter writer, we ran the first top half before, we've gotten the written content, and now we want to create a campaign. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select create an email campaign. And then our make automation, which for the newsletter writer would be set maybe like once a day to go in and check to see if you've selected anything to be created a campaign or anything that's drafted. But for now, we're just going to hit run once. But remember, this is not much of a manual process. So here you go. You can see that it routed down towards Mailchimp this time because I said create a campaign. And we are complete. It is so quick. Let's go see what the output is here. All right, it gives us our Mailchimp link over here. We're going to go look at this pretty newsletter. Just like you saw in the beginning, here it is. It's got my, up here in the left column, you can see that that's been replaced. It's got my header image, and it's got all the formatting that I've set up for it. So this is a newsletter automation that I'm obsessed with. I just think it is so sleek, so clean, goes right into Mailchimp. I love it. And I hope that you love it too. I hope that you built it alongside me. And just like a quick snippet for a use case for this, other than, doing a newsletter about your business or like, a personal newsletter, there is actually something really fun that we've thought about, and it's setting up a newsletter just to come to yourself. So for example, I've recently changed my eating habits, and I've set a newsletter to come to me on a daily basis that surprises me with new facts and a new recipe for dinner. Because to be honest with you, that's way more exciting to me than having to sit there and search up recipes. Even with AI, I still go and search recipes, but just it's fun when it comes right into your inbox. It's just a use case that I've found outside of just the general newsletter. You can take it and run with it if you want. If you like what you saw here today, please come back to my channel, like and subscribe. I'm always putting out new tutorials for AI automation. I'm very passionate about this, and I hope to inspire and get ideas going in your head, just like all the ideas are going in mine. So I'll see you next time. Have a good one.